Thousands of children, some as young as 6, are contacting Childline to seek help with loneliness, with 4,000 young people contacting them about the issue last year.
Well, it's the first year the charity has recorded figures like this, with 5 times more calls from girls about loneliness than boys. Rebecca Williams has the details.
She was so lonely that at one point suicide felt like the only option. Rebecca, who wants to remain anonymous, is just 16 years old. And she's one of thousands of children who called the NSPCC last year, desperate for help.
It got so bad that where there was one day, probably my darkest day, where I couldn't make it an hour without cutting myself. And it got to a stage where I really scared myself because I thought, am I going to make it through the day without killing myself? I think before that day I had a few suicidal thoughts, but nothing that actually felt real. But in that moment, I was just crying on the table and I felt like, am I going to kill myself today?
Social media and unrealistic images of celebrities all add to the pressures for youngsters growing up in modern day society. And at this youth group in Bristol, some told me about the impact that can have.
Do you think there are pressures with like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and, youngsters looking on the internet?
Yeah, you only post your best side on social media, so it's completely different from being friends with a person in real life. You only know them on social media, or you don't really talk to them in real life because you only see that perfect life that they have.
And what's it like when you feel lonely?
You just feel like you've got no one there and there's no one you can go to about anything because you don't have their care, like they don't show that they care about you.
And if you've got problems, do you talk to your parents about it?
No, I'd rather go to a friend, like a college friend which I'm close with, than I would.
The NSPCC says that more than 4,000 children were counselled for loneliness last year. That's 11 every day, and some children were as young as 6.
I think certainly children are under more pressure now. They're finding it very difficult to talk to their parents. Parents are understandably, and families are very, very busy. They have high expectations about themselves because when they see things online and through the media, there are images that they try to live up to, and that's an impossible. Often, many those images are very impossible to live up to. So there's a sense of failure, and with that failure comes a sense of isolation, and therefore they're interpreting that as loneliness.
Loneliness is often associated with the elderly, but with the struggles of modern-day life, isolation is clearly now impacting on the younger generations as well. Rebecca Williams, Sky News, Bristol.